By the way, they still have a big gorilla at the zoo, but not this particular gorilla. They have another big gorilla, but this one was raised from a. They got this animal. He was about the size of a shoebox. He was a very small animal when they first got him. While this is on, I'll tell you a little story, kind of how this got started. My parents were vaudeville show people and went to some medicine shows, and in about the middle of the 30s, they bought some animals, had some animals, and they'd take animals and had lectures on them. Like if you took an armadillo to Virginia, people in Virginia hadn't seen an armadillo, and if you bring a badger down to Florida, people in Florida had never seen a badger, and they had different animals. So they bought their first chimp in 1939, Snooky, in a New Orleans. A little show was going on in a show front of a store, in a store front, and they purchased for $300 Snooky. I believe it was 1939. Brought him home. We used to winter along the levee out of New Orleans, near the Huey P. Long Bridge, out of New Orleans, Louisiana. And I remember when they brought Snooky home. The chimp may have weighed 50 pounds or so. And they put on a show with the animals, and they had a truck that had a big cage in it and a canvas around it. Now that truck that you're looking at right now, that one was made in 1946. And that was a wrestling and boxing arena in that truck that you was just looking at. But the one they had in 39, 40, along through there until 1946, they had a number of animals, and in the big cage, they'd take a little cage and take the animal out, lecture on it, and put it back in, and that way if the animal got loose or anything, he was still in the big cage where people was looking at it. Well, a little chimp, when they bring him in the cage, sometimes he wouldn't go back in a little box. So one night somebody in the crowd said, "I'll help you put that monkey in a box." So my father said, "Well, come on in if you think you can do it." So the man came in tried to put the little monkey in the box, and it turned out to be a good show. So they kind of adopted each night. Somebody would come in and try to help put the chimp in the box. Well, it turned into kind of like a wrestling match. So then as time went on, the chimp got to where he would bite a little bit, so my father had to devise a muzzle for him. Now, he couldn't do that for the gorilla. If you notice the neck on this gorilla, there's no neck. There's no way to put a collar. They have to chain a gorilla by the hand or foot because there's no way you could put a collar on their neck. Their neck is bigger than their head. So anyway, for this chimp, he made a muzzle, and it kind of evolved into a wrestling match. And over the years, night after night, the chimp knew exactly how to make every move and do anything that was necessary to be done to take care of himself in any situation. And Snooky met all comers for years and years. Let me go answer the phone. I had to go answer the phone. Now, where was I? Okay, the wrestling and boxing matches kind of evolved out of 1939, the purchase of Snooki, and through the years, up until somewhere in the 70s, they continued to have wrestling and boxing matches. Each animal would kind of train the next animal because they'd look through a little peek hole and could see what the other one was doing. So as we added more animals to the wrestling and boxing, then they kind of learned from each other what they were going to do in the cage. And I'll tell you a little bit about what they did in the cage. The cage in the truck, the big red truck that was there at the zoo 10 years ago, that's no longer there now, it deteriorated finally. The cage wagon had cages in the front end and then a big cage in the back with bars on both sides so the public could look in the cage. The sides opened up on the truck and exposed the bars, exposed the big cage. The cage was 8 feet by 11 feet by about 6.5, 7 feet tall. 2 bars in the top of the cage for the animal to swing on. A tire, 1020 truck tire, bolted in one end of the cage for the animal to sit on. That put him up eye level with a man, 6 foot high man, eye to eye. The man would be on the stage out front. The crowd is out front. The crowd pays their admission to go in and see this man go into the cage. He's going to wrestle the animal. The